Hi everyone, welcome back to the Mindshift Special Ed channel, your dedicated resource for everything related to special education. Today happens to be another blessed day for us to have a wonderful discussion on a topic that is very crucial for parents, educators, and anyone involved in supporting students with disabilities. And the topic is understanding the processes involved in Individualized Education Plans, that is IEPs. And guess what? To help us demystify the IEP process, I am very happy to welcome Ms. Tova, a dedicated and experienced resource teacher who has worked closely with families, students, educators, and school teams to create IEPs and also implement effective IEPs. With several years of experience in special education, Ms. Tova has a wealth of knowledge about navigating the ins and outs of the IEP process, advocating for students, and collaborating or building collaborative relationships between educators and families. Ms. Tova, thank you for joining us today.
And thank you for having me today.
All right. Okay, so if you don't mind, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey as a resource teacher?
Okay. Hello everyone, I'm Aquita Stover.
Okay.
I am born and raised in the United States. I live in Lancaster, South Carolina. I have lived here my whole life.
Okay.
I have 2 sons and 3 grandchildren.
Okay.
I started out not as an educator. I started out in the engineering field and did not find enjoyment in that to the fulfillment. So my mother, she has always told me to go into the education part. And she saw me as a teacher, so I said, why not try that? So teaching is my second career. One day I decided to go to Winthrop University. That's known as the teaching school here in South Carolina, one of the best schools in our area. That helps promote good teaching skills.
Wow.
So I decided one day to take on the path of becoming a special education teacher through Winthrop University's program. I went back to school for that, and I have been teaching for about 12 years now.
Wow.
As a resource teacher. I have experience as a resource teacher, I have experience as a self-contained teacher, and I have experience as running a special education department within a school environment.
Wow, that's so wonderful. As you can see, he is highly experienced when it comes to providing services to students with disabilities. And guess what? She is my mentor, you know. I always tell her that if I grew up, the next word, if I want to become a woman, I want to be like you.
You're too much, Dave, too much. You give me
she doesn't always want to hear that, but I'm taking her footsteps gradually. That's good.
Well, thank you for being a great mentee.
Okay.
And you also, even though I've been your mentor, I have taken on and learned a lot from you as well.
Oh, thank you.
So the role goes both ways. I'm always open to learning new things and continuing to grow my knowledge.
Wow.
And we can't do that without being open.
That's true.
Yeah, my saying is when you feel like you know everything, it's time to move on.
Wow.
So I always want to go into the next step in my life or continue each day of my life, not thinking that I know everything, because I always want to take that opportunity to learn from others.
That's very
so I'm blessed just to have met you as well and your colleagues.
Thank you very much. I'm blessed too. All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Tova, for telling us or sharing with us your journey as a resource teacher. All right. So to start with the discussion, what exactly is an IEP, and at what level does a child or a student qualify for an IEP?
Okay. An IEP here in the United States and per se in South Carolina, IEP stands for Individualized Education Plan. And an IEP for a student is where a student shows a need academically, emotionally, or cognitively, or just with skills, basic skills, a need in certain areas, and they have to qualify for it.
Okay.
The way the IEP process begins is it starts in the classroom. A general education teacher might see that there's an issue or a problem with a student. They're falling behind.
Okay.
So they might alert whatever that school's process is for notifying someone that there's some issues going on that need a deeper look into those issues. Okay. And it might be what we call a RTI, response to intervention team. Okay. And that team can be made up of a guidance counselor, maybe the school psychologist, a principal, and those members are going to start looking at what things can we do to help that child be successful while they're in their core general education classes.
Wow.
At that point, there might be some interventions that are brought up from others that are helping on that team to help that classroom teacher see how can we support this child to see if this child definitely needs an IEP or if they may qualify in the future for that. So they begin collecting data, seeing where the needs are. Then they'll try some trial and error with some different interventions to try to help that child succeed in whatever avenues they see the child needs helping in.
Wow.
If that process still lingers on and it still seems as though the child needs some more excessive help, they will move through some tiers. Some systems have tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, where you do a whole group, then you might break it down to small group, and then you do one-on-one interventions with that child. If that continues to be an issue, then the school psychologist will step in, get permission from the parents to see if they can test the child to see if there are some deeper issues going on. After the child is tested, if the school psychologist notices that yes, there is a disability in certain different areas, then that's when the parent will be notified of the data that they have found. And then if the parent gives permission, that's when the initial IEP process begins. And that's when the special education teacher steps in, excuse me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's so comprehensive.
Yes.
So before a student will be identified to be eligible for special education services, it has to go through comprehensive processes.
Yes.
Before the child. Okay.
Yes. Some people call it, and it might be different in other states. But here in South Carolina, we have something called Child Find, and that's where we have students that send out those red flags when they're in their general education classes and they're struggling, and the teachers notice it. And whatever process that district does, they all have a certain process where they want to identify those students that are struggling in certain areas to see if it's a need for an IEP.
Wow.
Yes, but the school psychologist is the first step. They will come in with certain testing to see what category, if a category, a child can qualify in. And there are different categories. Some students, when they come into the IEP process and they are identified as needing an IEP, they can have a category of a disability called a specific learning disability. Those are students who have a learning academic issue in either reading, writing, and math. Or students can have higher scores in math and writing, and their weakness can just be in reading, and it can go vice versa. Some students can have a area in all three academics, and some can just have it in one area. And those students are usually labeled under the category of specific learning disability. Then we have students who have a category where they can be labeled under called OHI, which is other health impairment. Sometimes we see students that we serve, they might have ADHD, and they might be labeled as in that area because they don't quite as well have a academic issue in math, reading, or writing. Then we have some students who might be labeled in the category of an intellectual disability. Those are the students who, when the school psychologist tests them, their IQ score is 70 or below. Then you have levels to the intellectual disability. Or is it a mild intellectual disability? Is it mild? Is it moderate? Is it severe? Or is it profound? Those are your different levels. In resource setting, I have had students on my caseload that have ID mild, intellectual disability mild. That means that when you have an intellectual disability, they lack sometimes in the skills cognitively to take care of themselves with intellectual disabilities, but they can still perform on a resource level where they're not moderate, severe, or profound, where they need more assistance. Sometimes students with intellectual disabilities that are profound, they might have to have a nurse in the room with them. They might have to be working on self-help skills, how to brush their hair, brush their teeth, wash their hands. Those are more of our profound, severe students. An intellectual disability, they can be born with some cognitive issues, or a student could be fine and have a car accident, and that placed them in that category of an intellectual disability, maybe from brain trauma or something from an accident. So there are different types of categories in special education. We also have students that have autism. That is a category that students can be labeled with. And our school psychologists here in the States, they will test the student, and it's their job to see what category best fits the student that we're trying to serve.
Wow. That's so comprehensive. So in this case, you have worked in the self-contained area and then the resource area as well. So is there differences when it comes to their IEPs?
It is. When you have a resource IEP, those students here in South Carolina, other states might be different. In South Carolina, we have only 2 tracks. Either you're on your high school diploma track, that's a student that is on track to earn their high school diploma, or you're either not on a high school diploma track, and that sometimes is our students who are on a non-diploma track who are served in the self-contained environment. That means they're not working on academic skills, they're working on more help self skills. Yes.
So that could be daily living skills.
Daily living skills. Yes. It could be skills as occupational. They could be on the occupational track, which is still the non-diploma track here in South Carolina, but the occupational track is where they can go on to voc rehab, and they can learn job skills, learn how to, they'll have a job coach that'll go out with them to teach them how to do those job skills repetitively. Most jobs that are hands-on for them are easier, and they have a coach right there to coach them through those skills so they can prepare them to take care of themselves and be able to be employable if that is the area for that child. If they're more so profound, that might not be the skills that we want to use for students who are on a non-diploma track, which is pretty much in a self-contained environment. They might be working on other skills, maybe just learning how to eat. That would be their interest. So an IEP is definitely developed depending on the child, whatever they need. That's what a good educator would do. Each child is different. Each category is different. You want to always put the child first. Whatever they need should be in that IEP.
So before those processes that are involved before a student is qualified for IEP, what if the parent is not in support with that?
Here in South Carolina, a parent can definitely let the educator know if they don't want the IEP. So are you speaking of a child that's already in the special education environment, or are you speaking of somebody just coming into
somebody just coming into the special education environment? Hopefully the educator can explain to them what the IEP is there for, to help them. Typically an IEP annually, as a special education team and a special educator, we're supposed to go over the IEP at least once a year. But a good educator knows that you will go into that IEP, amend it, and do whatever for that specific child whenever needed. So you can have a special review of an IEP more than once a year. That's what a good IEP is for. As the child grows and changes and needs goals and other things pertaining to the IEP paperwork, that should change as well. So typically an IEP has to be by law. We have to come back together at least once a year to tell the parent where the findings are, the current educational needs of the child, and what accommodations will help the child be successful on whatever path they're on. But anytime you see that a change needs to happen and you need to have another meeting, a good educator should be able to do so as many times as that is needed. That's true. Thank you very much. And then we are happy with your responses, and we know very well that a lot of people are going to benefit from this discussion. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Oba, with the responses that you have provided. That's really a lot. Yeah, it's really a lot. Yeah. So to continue with the discussion, I know IEP. It has a team. Every student that has an IEP, there's always a team that has to be bringing their minds together in order to help the student to be able to be successful. As far as teaching and learning is concerned. So who are the key team players when it comes to the IEP team? And what does each team member bring to the table?
Okay.
that will actually help the student to be successful.
Okay. So the key team members to our IEP team is you want to first have your LEA.
Okay.
And an LEA is someone like your principal of your school or your assistant principal. Their role is to be the guide during the meeting, making sure we stay on topic, making sure the meeting is focused on the student, making sure that each party adheres to a respectful manner between each other, and that we stay on task. They're the overseer. The LEA can step in and bring in the part when it deals with the school district's policy, with any behavior policies and things of that nature.
Okay.
Then we have the general education teacher. Their part is to be in the meeting to give the parent a picture of what the classroom looks like, so that they can see what goes on when their child is in there and they're not there. They're going to talk to the parent about that environment. Then we have the special education teacher. Their role is to figure out what needs does the student need in their IEP. What can we work on to help make this child successful in the learning environment when compared to their regular education peers. The next party or person that needs to be in the meeting is sometimes we typically we can invite the school psychologist. And that school psychologist, some meetings they might need to be in, some meetings not so much. But a school psychologist is a good resource to have in your meeting when you have data that needs to be explained, especially when you're talking about a child's disability category or some background information on IQ scores. Your school psychologist can provide that information during the meeting. They can read the data and explain it well to the team. The next person in the IEP meeting, typically when a child is in high school, we like for the young adult, the young student to be in the meeting. Who better knows themselves than themselves? So they can speak and tell each participant in the meeting what they think works and what they don't think works, and what do they think that needs to be added to help them be successful as they try to go out into that general education environment and work beside their peers.
So basically, they themselves, they are part of the team. It's just like they will advocate for themselves.
Yes. Yes, we always want the student to be able to advocate for themselves because they know more than what we can about what they need. Yes, we might have to help them explain what they need, but they definitely know what could help or work better for them. So we want them to be an advocate to speak on that at the meeting.
Yeah, that's true.
We also want the parent there. The parent is the child's first advocate. The parent is the child's first teacher at home. When they're born and beginning their stages in life, the family and the parent are their first teacher. So the parent can provide some vital information to help in the IEP process as well. And we always want to include the student and the parent in that IEP team as well. Also, sometimes a guidance counselor, depending on the level of what education grade level the student is in. When they're in the high school level, you want to try to reach out and have that guidance counselor come into the meeting so that the guidance counselor can paint the picture to the parent of where the child is standing right then. If we're talking about the high school level, what credits they have already earned, what do they need to earn, and how their grades and GPA are looking. The guidance counselor can give us a glimpse of that part in the IEP team. But your main people that definitely need to always be in the IEP team is you want the parent, the student, the special educator, you want your LEA, which is an assistant principal or a principal, and you want a general education teacher. Those are the basic members that by law we need to have in an IEP team meeting. Your extra members that also would add a beneficial part would be your guidance counselor and school psychologist as needed, or even an advocate. But that will be on the parent if someone like that needs to be present in the meeting.
Oh, okay. All right. That's good. So actually, sometimes in an IEP meeting, a parent may be mixing up, not necessarily mixing up, but like be confused. If you are presenting the current data, and it happens that the data shows that the student is performing below grade level, sometimes the parents end up generalizing that, maybe since the student is in 9th grade, and then the current data based on the IEP goals, shows that the student is performing below grade level, let's take it at 8th grade, and you are reporting or just presenting in the meeting, and you say, okay, based on the findings, the student score 80% on 8th grade material, meanwhile the student is on 9th grade. So sometimes the parents will be like, oh, but the daughter or the son is in 9th grade, and how come? So it's like there's a mix up here. They end up taking the IEP goals data and turn it to be like the general education performances. I don't know whether you understood what I'm saying.
I do understand.
Yes.
So some parents, they have that wow factor, or they get confused.
Exactly.
Based on some of the weaknesses that we find as special educators that the children display to us.
Yeah.
I always tell parents when I present in meetings that this data is not set in stone. This is just one glimpse of where the student is.
Exactly.
They could not had a good test taking day on that data they were testing. I also tell parents we like to take data from different avenues to make a holistic picture of where the child is. And just because they might be behind on grade level due to a reading disability does not mean that they can't be successful with the right accommodations when they're out in their core classes and working beside their peers. I like to tell parents that as long as they're staying afloat, that means passing their core classes, that's what we want. If they are in the high school environment, and they're on track and they're passing their classes even though they might be behind in a reading level, we want to continue to build on those reading skills so they can try to catch up. But in the meantime, as long as we provide them with the resources where they stay successful to be on track to graduate, that's what we want.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. All right. So just like I want us to do something. We are talking about the processes that are involved in IEP, right? Okay. So, what are the main things that are listed in an IEP? The main things I just want us to discuss briefly about what actually is inside the IEP.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the main things that make an IEP. Is we want to focus on what are the child's strengths, we want to know what are their weaknesses, and what are their goals going to be and their accommodations. Those are the big pieces that stick out to me in an IEP. When you're in an IEP meeting, your special education teacher should tell you some good things about what your child does well. And then they should tap on some of the things they see as a weakness that they want to in turn turn into a goal to work on to help that child be successful in their general education core classes. The next part of the IEP, a good special education teacher should think about some of those accommodations. Accommodations are those things that are given to a special education student, when they go into their core classes, they can use those things to be successful when they're working beside their peers. For example, if a student has a learning disability and has trouble with processing slowly things of information, new information, we might want to have an accommodation that gives them extended time in the classroom. Doesn't mean they don't know the knowledge, it just takes them a little longer than their peers to show their knowledge. So we don't want to make them feel bad for that. We want to give them a resource to let them take their time to show the teacher what they know, and they still can get that same, give their same information to that teacher as the peers did.
Okay, that's fine. I that's very good. So one area or one special area in the IEP that will actually help the student to be successful in the general education classroom is the part of the accommodations.
Yes.
Okay.
It gives them access.
Okay.
We want to always give that student access so that they can have access to the curriculum. That's the material that the teacher is teaching. We want to give them some safety nets to make sure they're successful so they can have the appropriate access to the material as their other peers.
All right. Thank you very much for for giving us this opportunity for us to benefit a lot from this discussion. And I'm very happy you accepted the invitation and then you are here for us to
Anytime.
Thank you very much. And then please stay connected, subscribe, and then be part of the MindShift Special Ed channel community in order for us to benefit and then discuss a lot so that we can all learn from each other. Until next time, please stay connected and stay inclusive. Thank you.